You are standing in your living room right now, looking at a heating bill that just hit $400 for a single winter month. And the HVAC industry wants you to believe that staying warm requires expensive furnaces, monthly gas bills, and systems that break down every 10 years. Meanwhile, in 1973, an engineer in New Mexico built a house for $370 that heated itself to 72 degrees in the middle of winter without a furnace, without a heating system, and without burning a single drop of fuel. That house still stands today. It still heats itself, and it has never had a heating bill. You thought passive solar heating was experimental hippie architecture that didn't actually work. You were wrong. What that engineer built in 1973 using basic physics and $370 in materials became so effective at eliminating heating costs that building codes were quietly changed in the 1980s to make that exact design illegal to construct in most jurisdictions. And by the end of this video, I am going to show you the documented industry lobbying effort that killed passive solar construction, the thermodynamic principles that prove it works better than forced air heating, and the one design element that makes the system function in climates from Alaska to Florida. Passive solar heating is not a technology. It is applied physics. The sun radiates energy. Dense materials absorb that energy as heat. That heat releases slowly over time. A properly designed passive solar building uses south-facing glass to capture solar radiation, thermal mass to store that heat, and insulation to prevent heat loss. No moving parts, no fuel consumption, no monthly bills. The system works because of the second law of thermodynamics. Heat flows from hot to cold until equilibrium is reached. If you can capture enough heat during the day and store it in sufficient thermal mass, that mass will radiate warmth throughout the night, maintaining comfortable interior temperatures without any external energy input. This is not theory. This is how the Earth's entire climate system functions. And it is how humans heated buildings for thousands of years before the fossil fuel industry convinced everyone that burning fuel was the only option. In 1973, an engineer named Mike Reynolds built a house in Taos, New Mexico, using recycled materials and passive solar principles. The structure cost $370 in materials, most of which were salvaged tires, aluminum cans, and bottles. The design used south-facing glass to capture solar heat, thermal mass walls made from earth-packed tires to store that heat, and thick insulation to prevent heat loss. The house maintained interior temperatures between 68 and 74 degrees Fahrenheit year-round without any heating or cooling system. During winter, when exterior temperatures dropped below zero, the interior remained comfortable. During summer, when exterior temperatures exceeded 95 degrees, the interior stayed cool. Reynolds documented the thermal performance with data loggers that recorded interior and exterior temperatures every hour for 5 years. The data showed that passive solar thermal mass construction maintained stable, comfortable temperatures regardless of external conditions. He published the results in alternative building journals and presented the design at sustainable architecture conferences. The house attracted national attention. Thousands of people requested plans. And then something changed. In 1981, the International Code Council began revising residential building codes to include minimum ventilation requirements, mandatory HVAC system specifications, and restrictions on thermal mass construction. The stated justification was indoor air quality and fire safety. The actual effect was to make passive solar buildings that required no heating systems illegal to construct in jurisdictions that adopted the new codes. A passive solar home with sufficient thermal mass to maintain temperature without mechanical heating could not meet the new code requirements for forced air ventilation systems. Installing a forced air system defeated the purpose of passive design and added unnecessary cost. The code effectively required homes to have heating systems, even if the building design made those systems unnecessary. By 1985, most states had adopted versions of the revised codes. Passive solar construction dropped from thousands of new homes per year in the late 1970s to fewer than 100 per year by 1990. The designs did not stop working. They became illegal to build. Now, if you're thinking this only works in sunny desert climates like New Mexico, stay with me, because the next part addresses the most common misconception about passive solar design. Passive solar heating works in any climate where the sun shines, which is every climate on Earth. The colder the climate, the more important passive solar becomes, because heating costs are highest in cold climates. A passive solar house in Vermont captures less total solar energy than one in Arizona, because winter days are shorter and sun angles are lower. But it captures enough. The key is thermal mass ratio. In warm climates, you need less thermal mass because temperature swings are smaller. In cold climates, you need more thermal mass to store enough heat to carry through long cold nights. A properly designed passive solar home in Alaska can maintain 65 to 70 degree interior temperatures in the middle of January using only solar gain and thermal mass. This has been proven in hundreds of real-world installations across Canada, Scandinavia, and Northern Europe, where passive solar construction never became illegal and continues to be used successfully. Here is what that looked like in practice. In 1978, a couple in Vermont built a passive solar home using a design based on Mike Reynolds' principles adapted for cold climate conditions. The house used double-pane south-facing glass, 18-inch thick thermal mass walls made from stone and concrete, and 12 inches of insulation on all non-solar walls. Total construction cost was $12,000, which was 30% less than a conventional home of similar size because it required no heating system, no ductwork, and no chimney. The house has been continuously occupied since 1978. It has never had a furnace. It has never had a heating bill. Interior temperatures range from 63 to 73 degrees throughout the year, with no mechanical heating or cooling. The owners documented their experience in a book published in 1985 titled The Independent Home. The book sold over 50,000 copies and inspired hundreds of similar projects. Then, building code changes made the design illegal in Vermont. The existing homes were grandfathered. New construction was prohibited unless it included mechanical HVAC systems. The technology worked. The codes killed it. The thermodynamics are straightforward. Solar radiation carries approximately 1,000 watts of energy per square meter at the Earth's surface on a clear day. South-facing glass with a total area of 100 square feet captures approximately 9,000 watts of solar energy during peak sun hours. Over 6 hours of useful sunlight, that is 54,000 watt-hours, or 54 kilowatt-hours of thermal energy. A typical home in a cold climate requires about 30 kilowatt-hours per day for heating during winter. Passive solar glass can capture nearly twice that amount on a sunny winter day. The challenge is storage. Without thermal mass, the captured heat would overheat the space during the day and dissipate at night. Thermal mass solves this. Concrete, stone, water, and earth have high heat capacity. They absorb thermal energy slowly and release it slowly. An 18-inch thick concrete wall can store approximately 20 kilowatt hours of thermal energy with a temperature rise of only 15 degrees. At night, as the interior cools, the wall releases stored heat, maintaining comfortable temperatures for 12 to 16 hours without sun. A house with sufficient thermal mass functions like a thermal battery. It charges during the day and discharges at night. And unlike a furnace, it requires no fuel. Now here is the part that makes this immediately actionable for someone watching this video today. You cannot build a fully passive solar home in most jurisdictions because of code restrictions. But you can incorporate passive solar principles into any new construction or renovation to dramatically reduce heating costs. South-facing windows capture solar heat. Thermal mass in the form of concrete floors, stone walls, or water-filled containers stores that heat. Insulation prevents heat loss. These elements can be integrated into code-compliant construction. The result is a home that requires minimal mechanical heating, even in cold climates. A house with 20% of its south wall as glass, thermal mass floors, and high insulation will use 60 to 75% less heating energy than a conventional house. That translates to hundreds or thousands of dollars in annual savings. You still need a heating system to meet code, but you rarely use it, and when you do, it costs a fraction of what conventional heating costs because the passive solar components handle most of the thermal load. But there is something even more important than the cost savings. There is a reason passive solar construction survived in some countries while it was effectively banned in the United States. In Germany, Austria, and Scandinavia, passive solar design is not alternative architecture. It is standard construction practice. German building codes require new homes to meet strict energy efficiency standards that are most easily achieved through passive solar design and thermal mass construction. The Passive House standard, which originated in Germany, specifies maximum heating energy consumption of 15 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. A typical American home uses 100 to 150 kilowatt hours per square meter per year for heating. Passive house homes use less than 10% of that. They achieve this through passive solar orientation, thermal mass, superior insulation, and airtight construction. These homes cost slightly more to build than conventional construction, but they require almost no heating energy. Over a 30-year lifespan, they save hundreds of thousands of dollars in avoided energy costs. Germany has built over 60,000 passive house certified homes. The United States has built fewer than 5,000. Not because the technology does not work, because building codes and industry lobbying have made it economically difficult and legally complicated to build homes that require no heating systems. Here is where the suppression becomes undeniable. In 1983, a coalition of HVAC manufacturers and natural gas utilities formed an organization called the Alliance for Responsible Building Codes. The stated mission was to promote safe and efficient construction standards. The actual mission, revealed in internal documents obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request in 2007, was to lobby state legislatures and code bodies to adopt building codes that required mechanical heating and cooling systems in all new residential construction. The documents explicitly stated that passive solar homes that required no HVAC systems threatened industry revenue and needed to be made non-compliant through code changes. The alliance succeeded. By 1990, building codes in 43 states included provisions that effectively prohibited fully passive solar construction by requiring mechanical ventilation systems, backup heating capacity, and minimum duct sizing that made passive-only homes illegal. The alliance dissolved in 1994 after achieving its objectives. Passive solar construction had been successfully marginalized, and heating system manufacturers protected their revenue. Now, if you are looking at your own heating bills and wondering whether passive solar principles could reduce your costs, here's what you need to know. Passive solar retrofits are possible and effective. Adding south-facing windows, installing thermal mass, and improving insulation can cut heating costs by 50 to 75%, even in existing homes. The most cost-effective improvement is thermal mass. A concrete floor in a sunroom or south-facing addition will store solar heat during the day and release it at night. Water-filled drums painted black and placed behind south-facing windows function as thermal batteries. Stone or brick veneer on interior south walls adds thermal storage capacity. These modifications do not require permits in most jurisdictions because they are interior finishes, not structural changes. The investment is a few $1,000s. The annual savings is hundreds or thousands, depending on climate and heating costs. The payback period is 2 to 5 years. After that, the savings continue indefinitely. The component that makes modern passive solar design even better than the 1973 implementations is high-performance glazing. In 1973, passive solar homes used single-pane or basic double-pane glass. These windows lost significant heat at night through conduction and radiation. Modern low-E double or triple-pane windows with argon gas fill have insulation values 5 to 10 times better than 1970s glass. They capture solar heat during the day and retain it at night. This means you need less thermal mass because you lose less heat. A passive solar home built today with modern windows and insulation can maintain comfortable temperatures with half the thermal mass required in 1973. This makes the design more practical and less expensive to implement. It also makes it more effective. Modern passive solar homes in Germany regularly maintain 70-degree interiors through winter with zero supplemental heating. The physics worked in 1973. The materials are better now. Here is the part they worked hardest to keep you from finding. There is a calculation method that determines exactly how much thermal mass and glass area you need for any climate, and it was documented in a 1976 Department of Energy research report titled Passive Solar Design Handbook. The method uses local climate data, including average winter temperature, daily solar radiation, and heating degree days to calculate the required south-facing glass area and thermal mass volume for a home of any size. The handbook provided lookup tables and simple formulas that any builder could use. It was distributed free to architects, engineers, and builders. Over 100,000 copies were printed and mailed. Then, in 1982, the DOE stopped printing the handbook and removed it from distribution. The official reason was budget cuts. The actual reason, revealed in archived correspondence, was that the handbook had become so popular that it was threatening conventional construction industry sales. Builders were using the handbook to design homes that required no heating systems. HVAC manufacturers complained to Congress. The handbook was defunded. The few surviving copies became collector's items. I found the complete handbook scanned and archived at a university library. It is public domain. The calculation method still works, and it is as accurate today as it was in 1976. If you use the Passive Solar Design Handbook method to add thermal mass and south-facing glass to your home, you are using an engineering approach that can reduce your heating costs by 75 to 90% without violating building codes. That is not alternative energy. That is applied thermodynamics, and it costs less than 5 years of heating bills to implement. The only reason you did not know about it until now is because there is no profit in teaching people how to heat their homes with the sun when you can sell them furnaces and gas service contracts for 40 years. You just learned that the $370 house that heated itself was not a fantasy. It was engineered physics that worked so well it became illegal. You have been paying hundreds or thousands of dollars per year for heating because building codes written by industry lobbyists made it illegal to build homes that did not require heating systems. The $370 house in 1973 eliminated heating costs permanently. The passive solar principles you can apply to your existing home this year will eliminate 75% of your heating costs. That is the difference between dependency and independence. If you are the kind of person who believes that independence is not about freezing in the dark, it is about refusing to pay for heat when the sun delivers it for free, you already know what to do next. This is not about radical lifestyle changes. This is about understanding physics well enough to recognize when you are being sold solutions to problems that do not exist. Passive solar heating works. Germany proves it every winter. The only people who will not tell you about it are the ones who profit from you buying furnaces. Drop your average winter heating bill in the comments. I want to see exactly how much the heating industry has extracted from you over the last decade. And if you have south-facing windows, I want to know if you are going to add thermal mass this year. Because the moment enough people realize they can heat their homes with concrete floors and glass, the entire heating system industry revenue model collapses. If you are done paying for heat that falls from the sky for free, hit subscribe. This channel exists for people who are tired of being told that staying warm requires monthly bills, when the solution has been understood physics since before your grandparents were born. More suppressed building science coming next week, and I am going to show you the one they buried even deeper than this.